Welcome, friends. Today is a really special day here on my YouTube channel. We're going to be interviewing a flute maker. This is a new segment that I have coming up called Meet the Maker. We're going to talk to flute makers, get behind the scenes, get answer some questions, and just have some fun doing it. Today, we're talking with Miguel Medina of Singing Tree Flutes. Miguel, welcome, buddy.
Hey, Johnny, how's it going? Good to
It's
be here with
good.
you.
Yeah,
It's great.
absolutely. I'm so glad you made the time for us. I know you're a busy guy. You're out in the shop, you're making flutes, you're packing orders, you're shipping stuff, you're posting on YouTube quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the your last year. What has that been like for you?
Oh my gosh. It's been a whirlwind. It's been a storm of business growth. It was like the perfect storm. I'd hate to say the pandemic was part of a perfect storm, but um, it was just came at the perfect time where I decided to put more money into Google ads and really start using YouTube as a marketing platform and just to reach the flute community to offer something back to my customers. And then with the proper marketing and with everybody sitting at home being on the web, all of a sudden my business just went boom. And so now, like many employees later, just trying to keep up with orders, and it's a great blessing though. And sometimes that inspires the most creative juices, just making new stuff and just going for it. It's been great.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can relate to that. It's like when the world was shutting down, we were experiencing opportunity. And
Hmm.
with a lot of more people at home, we had fewer people commuting and being out, and they were looking inward for their own and professional development too.
Yeah.
So, like you said, yes, I think it's been a perfect storm. So it'll be interesting as we move forward what this looks like and be even more creative on top of that. And I know
Hmm.
you've had there was a segment that you did, a Q&A a few months ago maybe, where you were taking some questions from the audience, from your customers and people, and on your YouTube channel. But I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions here today, just to kind of get the conversation rolling.
Hmm.
How did you come to the flute? What led you to the flute?
Okay, so post high school, I actually made the choice to not go to college. And what I chose to do was to pack up my stuff and get in a van and start traveling across the country. And I've always been really crafty. And so I started just making handcrafted items, all sorts of different things, and traveling and selling my wares along the way. And I was into music. I was into African drumming, and any let's call it world music from indigenous cultures has always been awesome to me. I just love it. And I was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I ran into a kid that was a student there. His name was David Hoover, and he's amazing. And he was making these flutes, and I saw him, and I had a just a little twinge of hearing them and loving the sound of them, but really no experience with them at all, except maybe a little ocarina that I played around with just before that. And so he had these flutes, and I traded one of my crafts for my very first flute. And that was it, man. And I was hooked. He gave me, I have a YouTube video like that too. He just said, "Oh, if you learn these three basic steps, you can play pretty well." And I followed those three steps, and there I was off and playing, and just fell in love, man. It was just that simple.
So, how long after you started playing the flute did you decide you wanted to make one? Was it instant because you're a crafty person and you're like, how does this thing
Instant.
work?
Absolutely instant. And I'm one of those guys who I feel like I like to live my life as if spirit is leading the show, so to speak. I guess there's lots of ways to interpret that or define that, but um, I was just on this traveling trip and just felt like I was being guided to whatever it is that I'm supposed to be doing in the moment. And in Albuquerque, New Mexico, I went from there to Santa Fe, New Mexico. This was literally less than a couple of weeks after I started playing the flute. And I was selling my crafts at this Trader Jack's flea market. It's a world renowned flea market where artists go, and a lot of gemstones, etc. And I saw a guy selling flutes there, and I stopped in his booth, and he was this really unique person, and I played a little bit. And then later on during the weekend, he said, "Man, you play really well. You should learn how to make these.
Mm.
And you can come on to my house and I'll teach you how to make them." And so of course I said, "Heck yeah." And there I was, led to my next thing. So
Wow.
it was that quick, man. It was just like meant to be, it seemed like. Really
That's
awesome.
awesome. So
Yeah.
when did you make your first flute?
So it was just after that. So literally, I mean, like I said, I lived in New York. I would travel, seemed like I'd go from New York to Oregon back and forth um, in my travels throughout the summer, one coast to the other. And so here I am in New Mexico, and I'm just kind of cruising, not really having a game plan. And from Albuquerque, we went up to Vend in Santa Fe. He met me. So this must have been 2 weeks after I got my first flute or something. And he invited me up to his place. Within the following week, I went up to his house, and again, this is probably 25 plus years ago, probably a little longer than that. Went up to his house, and he lived off the grid, no electricity, no running water. He did native ceremonies. He was a European. He was actually a Vietnam vet, but he ran into some native people in his life that gave him the right to do these ceremonies. And he poured the first sweat lodges that I've ever done too. And he said, "Here, you can post up in my teepee over here and spend a couple of weeks. I'll teach you how to make flutes."
Oh,
And
wow.
that was it. And very primitive flutes, like, okay, put the holes here, 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 and here, and it'll sound pretty good. And
Yeah.
that's how it started for sure.
Awesome. And what would you say is your philosophy? What is your guiding star for flute making?
Well, I would say, and this is whatever that you do, right? I mean, whatever that you do, you're you're putting yourself into something. So whatever that you create in your business or in your art or in your family, you are creating your parts of yourself are becoming manifest through whatever it is that you put your heart and soul into. So that's it. That's the thing. Put your heart into and soul into everything that you do. You know what I mean? And love it all the way. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know running a business, having a family, all these different, things in life,
Yeah.
right? It's a
Yeah. Yeah.
beautiful
Yeah.
and messy thing to balance.
It's crazy.
What would, if you could wake up in the morning and do this one thing, like what would be that one thing that just brings you so much joy that you don't even think that I don't even think about having to do it. I just love doing it. What is that one thing for you?
And it doesn't have to be flute related. No,
Sure. I
whatever.
mean, it's an open
It
question.
could be. Well, in all honesty, it's at least in the top three. I would say just to create, being artistic. I mean, and specifically in flute making, I joke around a lot and say, "Man, I need a vacation. I just need 2 weeks of uninterrupted flute making so I can just be with myself and create." And it's just the most freeing thing that I do, and that's why I've
Mm,
always done art. You know, the you know, and that's it. And spontaneity is super important to me. Like when I have that rigid schedule that I have to keep all the time, and there's this thing in my head that says I have to, I start getting a little bit spun out. You know what I
mhm.
mean? So I'd say that's another thing. If I wake up, I crave the freedom to choose in the moment. You know
Mm.
what I mean? I just want to do this right now, and I don't care what's on the schedule.
I think that's really important because, we've had conversations outside of now, and you know that I love to be productive and I love to get a lot done, and I have certain workflows and things that work for me, right? Because I've found things that don't work for me.
Hmm.
But I have also learned that I have to have, and it is important to have those unplugged times, those days on the calendar that you don't have anything scheduled, where if you want to take a bath and read a book. That's okay. It's part of it because you
Hmm.
need that replenished time. And I totally
Yeah.
get you. Like to be able to create art without, like, I know you love flute making and I know you love doing custom orders and being artistic with your flute making, and
Hmm.
also like as customers come to you with their vision of a flute, you
Hmm.
get into that, you embody that,
Oh
their
yeah.
vision, and pull that out. But sometimes you just need to do your own wild thing, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
it's the art of creating without an outcome. Like you can create not to make something, but just to be
Hmm.
creative, right? That's
Yeah.
in it of itself.
Absolutely. And I mean, since we've started talking, I think we started actually, becoming friends and stuff like that, in the wintertime. And it was right at that time, I think both of us were experiencing this sort of intensity of growth, like dramatically. And I really appreciate being able to converse with you because you seem to come from a different side of it and what makes an actual functioning business. Because it's one thing to be a creative artist, but there is another thing to be able to be organized and efficient, right?
Mm.
And if I just fly by the seat of my pants every day, I'm gonna lose it at one point. But yeah, correct. And I've always loved custom orders, but the scale that I was accepting custom orders, and even right now, I've had to say, hey, y'all. I mean, I'm sorry, but I'm actually not a machine like I thought I was, and I only can make so many flutes in a day. So I've had to extend wait times on custom orders and stuff. And I got to that point where I've had enough of a scale that even though I love to help someone's dream come true, sometimes a flute just wants to be what a flute wants to be. And also my creative spirit, it's like it's a relationship. And that goes back to the first thing I said, to where when we're creating something, we're a part of ourself becomes manifest in this world, in this universe. It's a dance that's happening between you and whatever it is that you're creating. And so it's partly myself, but it's partly whatever that it is that I'm creating, and then that becomes the creation, you
Hmm.
know and that's beauty, man. And that to me, it's so magical. And some days, you know what, that art piece is just great to make, and other days I love cracking out 10 super simple flutes and just tuning them and making them, and that's super fun too. It
Yeah.
doesn't always have to be an art piece. I just love making flutes.
Well, and
Brainless work is great.
I think that's important too. It's like, we have our super creative moments and our creative time where that just we exert so much energy doing that. And at other
Mhm.
times we need to just have something that's a little more simple. And you know what you said earlier, it's like, I feel like we attract the people in our lives when we need them, right? They just kind of like magically show up and it's like, whoa, you're here now. Hey, we've got something in common and we can work together and we can figure this out and
Yeah,
help one another. So that's,
absolutely.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Uh,
That gives me the moment to say, and I'm glad to know you, and I'm so happy to collaborate with you on whatever level that we do, and just what you offer to the people with your music and your teaching and your flutes and all of the things that you give the community. It's such a blessing to have that out there.
Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate that, and it goes both ways, because it's like, I wouldn't be able to work with people if they didn't have flutes, and you provide people with flutes. So it's like
Absolutely.
it's we take care of one another in our community,
Yeah.
and that's really what it's all about. So, what is the for you? What's the most? I mean, we talked about scale, we talked about custom orders and things like that, but
Mhm.
for you. Well, what's one of the most difficult aspects of making flutes or running a flute business?
Well, it's a couple of different things, because the business itself, by far the hardest thing for me is the administrative piece.
Hmm.
And I feel like people, for the most part, they feel like, yeah, I have good customer service and all these things. But when something goes wrong on the backside of things, in the market or on the website, or that whole piece, the administrative piece, the figuring that part out, which seems to be a great gift of yours, I get a little spun out, and it scares me, and I get I can sometimes not enjoy that piece. I get a little bit stressed of like, oh, this is not my wheelhouse. But as far as the actual making of flutes, as much as I love it, again, it's become that, and I don't want to deter anybody from ever wanting a custom flute. It's an amazing, great thing. But again, the scale of which custom orders, that started becoming a stress, because say if you have 60 to 100 orders that are all back, and you say, oh, I have this time frame of which I agreed that I would create that flute, and then it's not until 2 weeks before I even get to start building that flute that's before that time frame, and then there's a problem with the flute, or there's something wrong with the sound quality, or the key wanted to be a half step higher than it actually was supposed to be. It's kind of back to the drawing board. And then what do I do? It becomes like frantic, because I made an agreement with a person, and now I have to bump them ahead of the 60 other people. And so that part has become a little bit like, it's just added a little bit of stress, because I'm very big at meeting my agreements, what I mean, following through with what I said I would do. And then I put so much pressure on myself to fulfill that. And then it's not only tough on me and all my employees, because I'm frantically trying to, meet the needs of that custom order that was due at such a date. And it's that's become a little bit of a challenge, but the truth is, all work has a challenge, and I'm just so blessed to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I hear you. When you have a passion for it, you show up. You make it happen, and it's important to have that balance where you can still have that artistic thing. You can be able to provide that service to those people who really want that custom thing, because you've heard flute stories, or when people are talking with you and they're like, I want this on my flute because it means something to them.
Oh yeah.
It's like, ask someone about their tattoos, right? They have a story about it. They have a story about the artwork that they want
Yeah.
on their flute, because it's significant to them, and it just is something that they feel expressed by.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
totally hear you with that balance of you want to do custom stuff, but you gotta have the right balance with it.
Right. Well, yeah. I've taken your advice on that too. That was one of the areas I felt like you were super helpful with. Your advice was to say, okay, well, I can open and close custom orders. I'll always take custom orders, and I always want to fulfill that for a person and collaborate with them on creating what their heart's desire is. But also, okay, for this period of time, we're just gonna let flutes be flutes and make flutes, and then we'll open that for a period of time. And that's a better approach, because it gives everybody the opportunity to allow that creativity to be a part of the flute making. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So you showed me a couple of flutes before this interview, and I watch your channel on YouTube. You do a great job showing all these different flutes and different tunings, and I know you pride yourself on that, because it is something different in our industry. It's like, not only the artwork, your carvings are beautiful, the artwork on your flute's beautiful, but you're doing all these exotic tunings too. Do you have a
yeah.
flute or two that you can share with us?
Absolutely, absolutely. Seems like right now I have around me a bunch of Aeolian flutes, and I know I've mentioned to you that one of the things I love about flute making is to veer off just that most common scale that everybody knows as the Native American style flute, which that's a whole nother story, whether that's Native American or not, or whatever that is. But over 20 years of playing that, the different scales just excited me. And there's something, the way that I don't know what it is, the way that I express myself through a flute, the Aeolian minor, which has the 5-note pentatonic minor within it, I just absolutely love. So I make a lot of them, I play a lot of them. And this is the most recent. I had this one on YouTube. And excuse me real quick, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. Hey, we're
You know how
live.
this is. Yeah, we're live. Anyway, so this piece here is just one of those examples of, oh, now I get to let my creative juices flow. I haven't been able to do a piece like this in a while. I don't know if you can see that photo clearly, but
Yeah, that's
um,
beautiful.
yeah, a piece like this in a while because I'm so busy catching up on custom orders. But I'm in that transition where I'm adding creative pieces to offset because I'm not taking custom orders. And this just kind of came out of wherever, started drawing some owls and then this vine work around here. And that just, as I was going, it morphed into whatever it was going to be. And so that's just one example of when I can get crazy and make a real fancy high-end flute. Love it. And this is also, which we decided we won't play this one just because of our sound quality here, but this has a long barrel and a short barrel. So we actually have a drone that drones a fourth below the actual key of the flute. In this case, it's a C sharp 432 hertz but the drone is a G sharp 432 hertz. And those actually, and I won't take credit for that, Stephen DeRuby, I had another person say, oh man, Stephen DeRuby made this flute and I was wondering if I could get one custom made. And that started me on that. Now we make so many of them of that
Nice.
style. And I absolutely love it. And then we have this one here too. And again, I said Aeolian is my favorite. And one thing about flute making that I'll say is that my personality is such that I will never feel like, master flute maker, whatever the heck that means. I'm always learning. I'm always trying to think of something new. That's what makes it exciting. It's just coming up with different things that no one's seen before. And this one is one of my favorites that it's very complicated to make. This thing is an Aeolian minor flute. It's an E. It has an extended high octave range. I probably won't play that during this video, but some can get a full 2-octave range on these Aeolians. Not only that, but this is called an alternating drone because you can not only have it drone at the fundamental, but you can have it drone at I think this might be the third or the fourth of the scale, but then this hole here is the fifth,
Oh,
which,
look at that.
yeah. And if this is positioned just perfectly on an E flute, you actually get 5 notes on the drone side. So you get the low E, the high E, the A note, the B note, and the C note. Because if you lift the thumb hole while the pinky is covered, you're getting the note B. If you lift the pinky off at the same time as that, you get the note C. And it's so, so cool. So just on that side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's so cool. And you can change that while you're playing.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'll
I
play
didn't
that if
know
you want
this
to.
about that flute.
I am obsessed with these flutes.
I
I can't
love
tell you.
that. I am, hold on, I gotta write this on my want list.
I hear you. You want a little sound sample? Want me to play a
Yeah,
little bit? Okay.
absolutely.
Check, check. Okay.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah. And you saw
Yeah.
that video. This is the flute that is the sound of the new video that's on the homepage of my website that you saw.
Oh, yes. And
Yeah.
speaking of which, yeah, thank you for mentioning that. Your new website is absolutely beautiful. I know it's been a
Thank you.
labor of love, but it looks fabulous. So those of you out there that haven't been to Miguel's website in a while, go check it out. I love the contemporary feel, but just man, it's absolutely stunning.
Thank you
Um,
so much.
Yeah, and that flute too, and the lower flute. I know you have videos on YouTube with those that have better sound quality than what we're able to get out of this meeting today. So if you're watching this and you're like, I really love the way that sounds, and you want more, I'll put a link in the description below. You can visit Miguel's website and YouTube channel. I know he appreciates you subscribing to newsletters and the YouTube channel. And
Mhm.
speaking of, you were telling me earlier, there's something that you do on your newsletters only that you don't do anywhere else. What is that about?
And so, yeah, it goes back to a little bit what we were talking about before, is that flutes just want to be what flutes are oftentimes. And I tell you guys, I don't know how well you know Johnny, but he's amazing. He's an amazing business person and marketer and all of that stuff. And not only that, amazing musician. We love it. But um, I've taken so much of your advice. And one of the things was to, okay, Miguel, you're going to drive yourself crazy. You need to streamline a little bit more. Okay. Right. And so a lot of the new things on the website are inspired by a lot of Johnny's advice and to streamline things. However, sometimes in streamlining, that flute might just turn into something completely different than what I wanted it to be. And so I don't necessarily want to make the time or hire the people to, every time I have a flute that is a once made flute similar to that one with the owl burnings or something like that, that I want to necessarily take the time to post that on the website every time. That's just more time. That's more labor for me. And to keep the website mainly for flutes that I want to continue to reproduce. And so I really encourage people that if they're following my website to subscribe to my email list, subscribe to the YouTube channel, because the first place you're going to see a flute that is for sale that won't ever make the website is going to be the YouTube channel. If it stays for a few days after and I can get to it, the next place is post a newsletter with, okay, these items are what we're calling one and done items. And it's like, here's your opportunity. And a lot of there's some really basic flutes that are going to be available that way. I think I have maybe one of those here too, just a little no frills flute. And instead of it just being no frills, it has a feather wood burned on it. This one has a vegan leather tie or a vegan tie instead of leather tie. Little things like that that I might not necessarily make again, but super low cost. And I might just throw it on an email or on a YouTube video. And so that to me is, and we'll see how far it goes. I mean, it's really, I oftentimes try to respond according to what the customer's needs and desires are. But that's sort of my intention, is to like really just be watching the YouTube channel, watch the newsletter, because you might have a chance for a flute that, and not to say that you wouldn't be able to get that, but you could get it without 90 to 120-day wait. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And like, here it is. So
Yeah,
that's
and
the idea.
and I love that because it's poetic too, because you have this one-off flute, right? That maybe
Mm-hmm.
isn't going to fit into the website, or it may not make it there, but someone watching, because they are watching, they don't even know
Mm-hmm.
it, but that's their flute, right? It's like this is
Yes.
intended to be your flute. And because you're engaging in the content that you create and you put out in emails and YouTube, people are able to find their next flute, like belonging to them, speaks to
Mm-hmm.
them, and they might have the opportunity to maybe add some of that little wood burning or a little something extra to it while it's in the
Mm-hmm.
process, right? So
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, I love that because that
And
really speaks to, you know, not just a custom made flute, but more in partnership.
yeah, that's beautiful. I like that. That goes back to some of that, more of the spiritual piece about what I said earlier about being led. And one of the things that I believe like that, it is, it's, I guess we're talking about setting intention, right? What is it that I want from the universe, from my life, from things? And you set that intention. But there's more than setting that intention. The one thing that people can't forget is that, whether people call it prayer or meditation or whatever, we're meditating on a thing. The next step is that you have to do the work to open those avenues to receive those things. And
Yes.
that's where, I mean, it might sound a little bit mainstream or whatever, but that's where the YouTube channel or signing up to an email list, or that all is coming to play, because that's telling the universe or whatever, I'm willing to open as many channels as I can to find what it is that I'm looking for, And so I'm a giant believer in that, you
Abs-
know.
Absolutely. You have to take action. It's one thing to wish and want. Maria and I were just having this conversation
Mm,
last night. We've got some things that we're working on that we'll come out publicly with soon. We'll see. But that
mhm,
was one of the things that we were talking about. It's like there's people in our lives that we see and they just want these things, but that's
mhm.
all that they do is they want it, and they don't co-create it. They don't
Absolutely.
take any action to make it happen. And that's one thing that I really strive to encourage people, like, look, if you want this thing, you can get it, you can do it, you can achieve it, right?
Hmm.
It's like,
Absolutely.
right now I gotta work on my quarantine 15, it's like, and it's, I'm not just gonna wish it away. I gotta do something. I have to physically take steps this time. So, but that's
Yes.
on me, right? I know I need to do that. Um,
Absolutely.
so, we could talk for hours, and we
Yeah,
have.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
But
Absolutely.
I want to be mindful of your time, and mine and our listeners, our viewers.
Hmm.
What is the one thing or piece of wisdom or one thing that you want people to part here today, knowing? And I know we came off of one of those big nuggets just now.
Hmm.
But what would you tell someone who's seeing you for the first time? What would you like to share with them?
Okay. Less flute related, but just life related. Do you, be you all the way. Don't let anything get in your way, not fear, not excuses. Just be yourself, and all the pieces will fall into place. 100%.
Amen.
That's my thing. Yep.
I love it. Well,
Yeah.
Miguel, I really appreciate your time today, hanging out with us, having
Yeah.
some coffee. I know it's, I'm having coffee. You're sweating because it's so hot right now in Oregon. But
I am.
yeah, just appreciate all that you do and all that you offer to our community and our industry. We thank you. We love
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
and we're looking forward to the next the next thing.
Sounds wonderful. Same here. Thanks for all that you do. And I continue to doing more with you.
Awesome.
Look forward
Well,
to it.
friends, we're going to sign off here. Thanks so much for watching. We appreciate it. Like I said, I've got links in the description below. You can check out some of Miguel's work, his YouTube channel, email list, and website. You can find all those goodies down there for me too. I've got things down there that'll help get you started on your flute journey. Some free tips, some resources and things. Just go plunder through all that good stuff down there, and we will see you in another episode. Thanks so much. We love you
And
lots.